Welcome to People Talking Sitting Down.
Basically, you can't just put out a song nowadays and not do anything. It just gets shoved to the bottom of the pile, and anyone who's taking social media more seriously than you do is going to rise to the top. And so
your stance on that is because you care so much about the art and you're not willing to dilute it by doing something like that.
Anything that makes my art become secondary is going against my overall mission.
Well, welcome, Scott Ruth.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Philadelphia.
Thank you for having me. Wow, this is so cool. The first thing I said to you when I walked in here was how cool the view is.
Yeah. Are you afraid of heights at all?
No, not at all. Do you get sunsets, or are they set on the other side of the building?
It's the other side. So it's the sunrise, which is
that's cool too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, man. Well, first off, the first retrospected / People Talking Sitting Down collaboration pod.
Yeah.
To lay the land a little bit for everybody listening, Scott hit me up maybe not even a month ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, not very long ago.
With an idea, which I think is a brilliant idea, and I've been surprised that nobody else has done it, but you're recording a podcast episode for each song on the EP that you're putting out. And when is that coming out?
Well, we're rolling it out song by song for a little while, and basically until I get sick of doing that. But I talked about it on the last podcast a little bit, and just how, like, for better or worse, there's good parts of it and not so good parts of it. But for better or worse, Spotify favors artists who put out music more frequently, so like a song a month or so, every 4 to 6 weeks generally, especially for most newer artists, and I still consider myself to be one of those. It makes the most sense to put out music every 4 to 6 weeks or so, because that's just the way that their algorithms favor. Yeah, the algorithms favor that. So, which, sucks in a way, because people like to, people including myself, enjoy consuming music all at once, like an album, a full project, all at once, the old school way, which is, that sucks. But also, from a music creator standpoint, it's kind of a cool thing, because if I write a song, I can put it out, in 2 weeks if I wanted to, which I've done before. I did that for a song called Weather Balloon that I put out. In the middle of COVID. Yeah. I just, like, the whole goal was to, I tend to, like, overthink things, and so the goal with that song was just to, like, write and record and release something as quickly as possible. Yeah. So that's what I did. I wrote it, recorded, and, like, oftentimes you'll demo a song and then actually, like, re-record a better version of that demo, and kind of there's a whole pre-production process that happens before the song even gets recorded. But,
and I just want to pause on the Spotify point, because, like, that's something that we've learned, Max and I, about the way that the YouTube algorithm works. We were talking about it last night, even about the Instagram algorithm. Yeah. It's like, if you have to post for it to be, pushed out to other people. And if you're posting more often, it's the algorithm's helping you out and pushing it out more and more. Yeah. But to me, it takes away from a lot of it's almost interrupts the creative flow of things. Like, I don't want to have more conversations than I naturally, will, just to get out the algorithm boosted. It doesn't feel good. Yeah, it
sucks. And I'm not like anyone who's going to bend over to the algorithm, Yeah. So I only, like, am able to work with it within the way that I know how. There's some people that are very obviously just kind of like a slave to the algorithm. And I think that hurts art for the most part. It's definitely not the most artistic way to present the things that you're making. So again, I'm only willing to do it within the bounds that I'm willing to work within. But Yeah, it's just a fact of life. You know, if you, unfortunately, so much of the music industry is shifted over to social media now, and so you kind of just have to.
Yeah.
You have to find your footing in that, and find how you're gonna make this new your work within this new world. Which is somewhat challenging, but
yeah,
that's why I had the idea to do this, you know, because I'm a big fan of podcasts. You know, I listen at this point probably more than I do music when I'm like driving around or just taking my dog for a walk or whatever, going to the gym. Going to the gym. I need to go to the gym more.
Yeah, whenever I say that, I'm like, I
go to the gym. Like, anyone watching this, like, this guy hits the gym. So I'm a big fan of podcasts in general, but you know, basically you can't just put out a song nowadays and not do anything after. Like, you have to release your music and then have all this follow-up content to like keep it going, because otherwise it just gets shoved to the bottom of the pile, and anyone who's taking social media more seriously than you do is gonna rise to the top. And so
it even starts because, I mean, we were just talking about Max doing some DJ work, and like I know that you've done this, Max, and I've seen other artists do it, but like when they're working on a song, they put out like a 30-second clip, and it's like, hey, you know, again, asking the question, hey, should I finish this song? It's like, of course the artist is going to finish the song, but what they're trying to do is also drive interaction, drive attention, which isn't bad. It's what you're like supposed to do. It just is, to me personally, is like really hard to keep doing that. But there's people out there that, I mean, there's a guy, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I don't even know his name, but country singer down in Nashville, and his whole social media, I don't even want to call it a shtick because it works, but like he just goes up to random women in public and like sings them.
Oh, hold on.
Hold on.
Random women in public, he does, and that could have taken a turn.
But no, that's what he does. He like goes up, and it does seem a little staged, but he'll sing a song, and it's acoustic, and it sounds good.
Oh, got you. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I think that's fucking stupid. I'm sorry. That's like,
but it works, and that's the part that, like, again, what a question that I had when I was thinking about this is like, does your stance on those things get in the way? Because I think sometimes your stance on that is because you care so much about the art, and you're not willing to dilute it by doing something like that. But if you want to, you know, like, that's the thing, is you could go do this in Philly and grow your following 20x by the end of the year, no doubt, if you just did it. But but it sucks to do it, and again, you don't like to do it, and it's.
Well, yeah, you said it perfectly, actually. So I'm not willing to do anything to dilute my art. So if anything that makes my art become secondary is going against my overall mission.
Yeah.
The art should be number one. And if I can do anything else to support my art, then cool. But when you get to that point and like you're just known for the guy that walks up to random people with an acoustic guitar on the street, and you're like, oh, can I play you my song? And you just kind of like ambushing strangers, and then you just get known for that, and that's your thing, and like, you know, and your art has taken a back seat, then you're not an artist. You're a social media guy who also makes music. Yeah. And that's not what I want to be.
And that's the thing, is like, there's two things. There's art, and then there's the art of gaining attention.
Yeah.
Which is an art in itself. Which is like, that's why like I respect it.
Well, I don't know if I call it an art, but
I don't enjoy it, but I respect like because to do it, to do what that guy's doing, it does take a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
I just don't think that I
respect the hustle for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if what you're trying to be is like a big social media person, then cool. But again, like if your goal is to be an artist and what you want to be known for is your art, and you want your art to do the majority of the talking for you, then everything else you do has to play a supporting role versus, you know, going out and just like getting. I know I have a couple people in mind. I'm not going to name them, but that that I know make music, but are known mostly just for their social media personality, which is weird to me. But
yeah,
I'm also 30 years old, so it's if you're a young kid, maybe you don't care.
Yeah, and it's funny. It reminds me. I have a friend, Dan Polzello, who's a stand-up comedian. I think I mentioned a little bit about him last night. That he went extremely viral online with a Europe versus USA skit. That now he's got over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and that's built his ability to schedule stand-up shows. But he said he's trying to get out of being known for that, and being known because then you're a character online, but then when you go to your stand-up, it's different, and it's hard to shake.
Think about what happened with that Matt Rife guy. Did you follow that whole thing?
Barely. I saw him on Joe Rogan for 10 minutes, and I was just not interested. But
yeah, I'm not like super. Yeah, I'm not. I don't follow it that closely either. But what I do know is that he basically got big on social media for doing one thing that's called. They call it crowd work. So it's just like all the bits and pieces you do in between your jokes during your set. And the reason that these comics post crowd work on their social media is because they don't want to burn their jokes for someone who goes to see them the next week in person. Like, if you see someone do a joke online and then you go and see them, they do the same joke. That's kind of lame. So I get why they do it, but he got known for being the crowd work guy on TikTok or wherever, and then he wanted so badly not to be known as that person that he apparently, I didn't watch the whole thing, but put out this comedy special that was like basically like sticking a knife in that version of himself, and like being kind of representing himself to the world as like an actual stand-up comic. Like, here's my comedy, and for one reason or another, it didn't really work, or it's subjective. But a lot of people were unhappy with what he did.
Yeah,
so.
and that's why again, like I for anybody who's checking out from the Retrospected Pod side of things, like the way that I set up my conversations is trying to get into somebody's mind of like, how did you become the person that you are?
Yeah.
Why? Where are you from? Like, what are all the ingredients that created Scott Ruth? And what I'm excited about is just hearing about your childhood, because you care so much about music and the way that it's done, the lyrics and everything like that. And I texted Aiden and I was like, after listening to the first episode that you did, I was like, there's clearly something that you turn on when you talk about music. That's just like, again, you're in your zone. But when was your first like earliest memory of music, of feeling? And then again, you're like earlier today, you were tapping away. You're always thinking about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It drives my wife nuts. I'm either always drumming on something or singing a song out loud that is like the most random song. There's a hair on my mic. Yeah, man. We were talking about it a little last night at dinner, but it's the first thing that I was exposed to very, very young that took hold of me, and it just has consumed my life ever since. And so for better or worse, probably, but yeah, I mean, my memories go all the way back to as far as I can remember. So my parents would play music in the house and in the car, and they're not like extremely musical people. My dad does play the guitar, but not professionally by any means, or then he never played in a band or any of that. But they were just playing classic records, Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles. He's a big Zeppelin fan, Tom Petty, the Eagles, just like all classic rock stuff that still holds up to this day. And as far back as I can remember, that was just like ingrained into my brain. So like, again, we were talking about this a little bit last night, but for some people it's something else. For some people, their parents are really into sports, or they're into whatever else it is. And so like that takes hold of their kids very young, which is just really crazy to think about, just how impressionable children are. And so you got to be careful in that sense. But for me, it was music. And then I also have an older brother who was showing me, so I was consuming all this really great classic rock music through my dad and both of my parents. And then my brother, who's a few years older than me, started showing me like punk rock when I was a kid. So it's so funny. I was like literally a 6-year-old kid who was really into skate punk and punk rock. And that was all because of my brother. So, you know, basically whatever was cool in the late 90s, you know, on skate videos and Vans Warped Tour, which I was like little kid, went to the Vans Warped Tour in the year 2000, which is so cool. Back when they still had skateboarding there and like motocross and all that. And then so yeah, my brother was showing me all the counterculture stuff, like all the stuff that was cool right then, you know, and that included like Blink-182 and Green Day and
I mean, Simple Plan had to be in that kind of mix.
Simple Plan came a little. I wasn't a huge fan of there. That was a little late, like a little poppy too. I mean, Blink-182 and Green Day are poppy as well, but I got into them when I was really young. Like, and they both had like their first couple of records out, which were like a lot more raw. But like, I know bands like Anti-Flag and so you probably wouldn't know so many of these, but like just skate punk, just kind of. Yeah, stuff like that. And then that grew into the early 2000s, like, you know, the music that everyone else was into as far as like emo and screamo kind of stuff, and some hardcore and metal and all that. But and then my music taste started to stabilize a little toward the end of high school. I started to like get a little less out of the more counterculture stuff and more into just what I'd call like classic songwriting, like rediscovering Fleetwood Mac, rediscovering like Bob Dylan. And
so at what point in that journey did you start playing your own music?
So I got a guitar when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So 10, something like that, 8, 9 or 10 years old, really young.
And you just started strumming away.
Just started strumming away. And like I said, I was a big music fan before that. So it was just a natural progression. But once I was so excited the first thing I started doing was learning all these punk songs, which was really, really cool in a way because it enabled me to gain interest in the instrument really quickly, because all the songs are really easy to play. Yeah. If I was really into jazz or something and I'd got a guitar, it'd be really hard. I wouldn't know it takes so long to get to a place where you could play all your favorite songs on the guitar. But I was into, you know, whatever, just punk rock. And so it's all power chords and really easy stuff. So I got a guitar and pretty instantly could just play all my favorite songs. And it was the coolest thing ever. So then it snowballed into me writing my own music. But, sorry, what was your question?
No, I just wanted to know when you got your first guitar and when this started, because when I think about you and any artist, the journey that you've been on, it's like I view it as a relationship. Uh-huh. You have had a relationship with music your entire life. It started out with an interest, and then it got to a more serious time when you were again maybe in high school, and then has taken you to where you are now. And just thinking about all of the ups and downs of any kind of normal relationship. Like you've probably gone through different emotional highs and lows, but also it does seem like you said it's been a consistent throughout your life. So there's never been any kind of like breakup stage or you trying to do something else.
Yeah, I've tried to break up with her, but it hasn't stuck. That's a really cool way to look at it. It is a little bit of a relationship. Like maybe a family member would be a better comparison. Like you can't really get rid of it even if you wanted to. But yeah, man. So it just took hold of me really young and kind of unfortunately has stuck with me the whole time. And anytime I've thought about doing something else, which has been often, especially over the pandemic when things were so weird, I think about it, and it's just that this is the one thing. Well, if you're a spiritual person, you believe that you were given a gift, and you kind of have to find a way to use that gift for good. But even outside of spirituality, it's just that this is the thing that has consumed my life for so long, and I'm decently good at it. And wow, it's definitely the thing that I'm the best at. So, it's kind of like, what else would I even do? You know, I had a conversation with a friend recently, and we were talking about the future and stuff, and he's just told me, he's like, I can't see you. I was complaining a bit, just like, man, this music thing is just gets harder and harder, and when I think I get a grasp on it, then it changes again. You know, it's you think you got it figured out, and then it's just changing so quickly in the landscape of everything. It's like, man, how do I keep doing this for the rest of my life? He just told me, he's like, I can't picture you ever doing anything else. Like, it's just that you're the music guy. You've always been the guy who's been the music guy, and forever. Like, even in high school, you know, they have those superlatives in the yearbook, right? It's like, most likely to be a rock star. I won my senior year, which is still not come true, but I definitely am the only person I know of in my graduating class that does music semi-professionally, you know?
Yeah.
So,
that's an interesting thought that, cause I think, again, and I love it. So just for so everybody listening knows, like we got connected through a mutual friend, good friend, Aiden. And, I was a fan of your music. Aiden and I have been a fan of your music. You guys got connected. Then we met each other, and I was just like, dude, like, it's so, again, the passion that you put into it and the time that you put into it, the love that you put into the art side of it is fantastic. And it's to tell a quick story. Like, I was excited about this when we came up with this plan, and it was right before Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And I threw your music on at the Thanksgiving campfire. Yeah. And my little nephews were like, they're like 2 years old and 6 months, and they were like bopping their head, and they were like enjoying it. I took a little video and I sent it. I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, this is like clearly, like, these kids even understand like the rhythmic, and I don't know like the right terms to use musically, but they can feel it. They feel what I'm feeling, and you make people feel things through your music. And I think that's from my outside perspective as like a fan, that comes across that's what you care about. Mm. But that's hard when your song just comes up for some random person on Spotify Shuffle. They don't get to hear that background of who Scott Ruth is and the amount of love that he's put into this project. Yeah. And that's what we're doing right now is cool, because I love talking about the everything surrounding music so much. And maybe that could turn people on to, people who are fans of your podcast, would get turned on to what I do through this, which is really cool to think about. But yeah, man, it's true. I do care a lot, and almost to a fault, because sometimes it's helpful just not to care so much. But it's just been such a deep part of who I am for so long that the way that I look at it is like, there's no sense in making art if I'm not going to do it artfully, and a way that feeds that virus inside of me, that has made me want to do this in the first place. But so many people throw the art out the window when it comes to like presenting their music. Like, I don't doubt that some people when they're writing the song are really care about the art that they're making, but then it's almost like they change over their mind to like marketing, the marketing version of themselves when it comes to releasing their art or presenting their art, like in the way that they record it and in whatever, just kind of like really, what would be a way to put it? Just like a materialistic point of view. And again, there is an upside to that, especially if you want to succeed in today's music landscape. But, for me and some other people I admire, it's just that the art is always paramount, and everything else, like, you'll figure out, it has to play a supporting role, because art has been so important.
art in general, but music has been so important to me personally that if I can just be that for a couple other people, then that's so cool.
You're almost passing on that feeling that you felt as a kid.
Totally. And it's really easy to feel, just to feel degraded and pessimistic about your musical career because it's such a tough world to exist in. But then I remember the handful of people that have shared their stories with me, which is just so cool. So in that way I've done my job already. So anything anything else I do like that brings me personal success is just a cherry on top.
Yeah, extra.
Really. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's funny because another reason that I am so attracted to your music is that I have always been a person who deals with my emotional, and especially as a kid. Like now I've attacked mental health head on. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, I never knew how to deal with my emotions in a certain way, and I dealt with it through music. I listened to music all the time. Going to sleep and play all night. Like I was always listening to music, and now I kind of do it with podcasts too.
Yeah.
But I loved sad songs. Like I love my genre of choice would be like sad acoustic story songs. I want to be taken through a journey. And I want to close my eyes. And something I do sometimes is I throw on those like the AirPod Maxes, the noise canceling, blindfold myself, and just soak in the song, as much as possible. And the music that you write, it has that like I don't want to say triggering feel, but it almost brings things up subconsciously or it almost brings things from the subconscious to the conscious to deal with. And that's how I process your music.
Yeah. It's like it's a pretty indescribable thing, but thank you. That's a really nice compliment.
Thank you for making it. But as far as kind of tying into your relationship with music, and I know you touched on COVID in the past episode, but I really wanted to ask like what that time was like for you and get into it a little bit, because it seems like there was a lot there, and there's a lot there for everybody. Mm-hmm. But especially for you, your livelihood essentially was taken away from you overnight.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you tie this into your like identity as well as a musician, but that could have been impacted as well. And like for me personally, like I was working, I had a full-time job, I got laid off, I had a part-time job, and part of why I found out about COVID was I was supposed to work the Taylor Swift at March Madness concert, and that got canceled. So I was like, okay, well, the world must be on fire because they're not canceling Taylor Swift for anything. But that like kind of shook me, and it ended up for me being personally a good thing. And my therapist has actually said that a lot of people that were struggling before COVID were able to figure things out during COVID and had a good COVID. A lot of people who were doing well before COVID, it kind of broke certain things, and there was like an opposite reaction.
Got you.
But what was that time like? And like, what was, after you find out that like it's shutting down, when you get home and it starts to sink in, like, okay, wait, this isn't just a 2-week thing. Where did your mind go?
The moment that it got really dark was actually a couple months into COVID for me, because I was on a tour, and I was on like playing some of the biggest, best shows of my career in the middle of COVID. So, I literally we were on our way to the next show, and then we just got a call from the tour manager saying, go home. These shows are all canceled. We'll figure it out. We'll reschedule. So when it got really dark was, a couple of months into COVID, because that tour I was on got rescheduled a couple of different times, and then a couple of months in, it became pretty apparent that it was just going to be canceled altogether.
Yeah.
So this like tour that I'd been working toward for so long and looking forward to for so long, and actually got the opportunity to do, all of a sudden was like ripped away, and it wasn't coming back. It just got taken off the books completely. So I had a couple tours, like 3 different tours basically lined up in support of my EP that came out in November of 2019, and then the world shut down in March of 2020. So just a couple months later. And I had all this touring lined up in the States and Europe, like really exciting stuff. And it all just got ripped away.
Yeah.
And it's just so, yeah, I mean, to give you a little perspective, I've been, obviously music's been a part of my life for forever, but I have been taking it seriously professionally, basically since like, the last year or two of when I was in high school, when everyone's figuring out like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I made the decision to go for the music thing.
So you didn't go to college or anything?
I did 2 real semesters at a community college where the first semester I'm like, well, okay, I'll take some prerequisites for working toward a psychology degree, see if that's something that I wanted to do. And pretty instantly I discovered that that's not what I wanted to do.
Wow,
so
that's funny.
And then I took a semester of prereqs for a degree in music, which also pretty quickly realized that's not something I wanted to do. I mean, like getting a degree in music means nothing. So, and then I realized that, if I want to do music, I just have to drop out entirely and devote my life to music, because this isn't going to take me anywhere. It's just going to distract me. It's going to take these crucial years away where I could be actually working towards something, and I'd just, be wasting them in school and taking on all this debt and stuff. But so, yeah, since I was 17 or 18 years old, like basically made the decision to take music seriously as a profession. And I was in a band in high school, and it was a high school band. So I listen back now and hear some whatever. It's not the greatest thing.
Were those like the best times though?
Oh yeah.
Because when I see those clips of like Green Day or anybody like playing when they were, first starting out and nobody was really listening, like what excites me about anybody, like the passion that they put into it. Like you can just clearly see these people are in their element. They're in their flow state. And especially something I think about with bands is crazy is they're all in the flow state at the same time. They're essentially creating a bubble of, and I get a little woo-woo sometimes, but like they're essentially creating an energy bubble that is being transferred to a crowd, and you're being fucking hit with it. And especially there's times like there's certain bands and certain songs, like, when, a certain one part of the song drops, it's just like people are in tears or people are dancing and going crazy. Like if
you're doing your job right, then yeah, definitely it can have a great impact on whoever's watching you. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It was like I'll never get those years back. The best years of your life, or you never know when you're in them. But I have videos of my high school band playing, and I've still to this day never played a show that's like as exciting as some of those, because like our music was a little more energetic, and people are young and want to get rowdy, and people are like stage diving, and it's just like the funnest thing in the world. So yeah, it's really crazy. I could show you a video after this of my old band. It was like,
it's funny. We'll probably let's see if we could throw it in a clip.
No, I don't want you to.
No,
but yeah, man. So I made that decision to pursue music, and the other 3 guys I was in the band with didn't. They're like, listen, we're all gonna go to college. Like, okay, fair. So I got out of high school, and I had to kind of figure out how I was going to move forward. So then I tried to start another band, and I just like couldn't find guys that were on board. It was just like everyone was just 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I have to be a solo artist. And right as I made the decision to be a solo artist, my friend came to me and was like, hey, we really need a bass player for this band. And like, I can tell the story later, but, we have some really cool things on the horizon. Like, you'd kind of be an idiot to not join this band. I'm like, fuck, okay. Yeah, okay. So then I started this band, and that and pushed my music aside for another 4 years. That was a good 4, maybe 5 years of me playing in this band. And we did some really cool things, like did my first touring in that band and played my first festivals. Some really cool stuff. Went over to Europe for the first time, and it was really cool. But then that band broke up, and I'm like, okay, so back to the drawing board. Now I'm older, I have basically 2 failed projects under my belt. Let's try this again. And so, and then right around then I started just kind of looking for work as a sideman. So I was playing, trying to kind of figure out how to get my own music out there, but then also playing like guitar and bass for other people and trying to make a little bit of a living doing that. So I'd like, working on my stuff, but taking pretty long breaks here and there because I'd be going on a tour with this person playing bass or whatever for a month or two and then come back and then, just kind of trying to juggle it all. But then I finally put out my, finally got around to putting out my own music again, which is, in hindsight, basically what I should have been doing from the beginning since I was 18 years old, fresh out of high school. Like I should have just been a solo artist and ran with it. But, that's just not how it worked. And so yeah, after like 2 or 3 failed projects, I start from scratch all over again. And so I put out I self-record my first album. It's called The Weight of It All. It's still on Spotify, and I still love it. And I put it out there, and I put it out there to no one. Really, just my handful of friends. I had made a few connections in the music industry through my last band, but those pretty much didn't carry over into what I'm doing now. I'm just to give a little bit of more insight into how the music industry works, I emailed my whole team from that last band. We had a booking agent, we had a manager with a big company and whatever. I sent my manager an email being like, hey man, this is my new project. And so if you would want to come on board as my manager, or if you have anybody else at your company that maybe someone young who wants to take on, a nobody, I'd love to talk about, how we can work together. Nothing from this guy. He was our manager for years. No response. Send him another email, nothing. I'm like, okay. Like I really am starting.
Yeah.
Fresh.
You're on your own.
So, and then I spend, a couple of years building up Ruth. So saying yes to every single show all over, the West Coast, Southern California, San Diego to LA, basically, and then slowly growing and just saying yes to everything I could, because my plan is to get in front of as many people as possible and show my music to as many people as possible, and that is an effective strategy, especially used to be. And you the goal is to play a show, grab a handful of fans, play another show, grab a handful of fans, and slowly snowball into something hopefully more sustainable down the line. And that's what happened. I saw slow growth. And so by the time I put out my EP in 2019, in November of 2019, which is the thing that most people know me for, because that was like the first thing I released that, where I really had any audience at all. By the time I put that out, I had been working at it for a few years, all this work that nobody's seen. And so, yeah, it was just really exciting to be in this place where you see your hard work paying off, and I'm getting all these tour offers, and this person is interested and that person's interested, and just all the things that are supposed to happen when you're growing your career. And it was really exciting, And
you worked for so long. Again, this is your life. You've been...
Yeah, I worked for like 10 fucking years. Nobody saw any of it, and
it finally starts going well.
Different projects failed and whatever. But yes, it was all feeling good, and which made the counter to that when COVID happened feel even worse, because this thing I had been working at for 10 years in various capacities, and that was I was finally seeing some return on, just got like ripped away. Yeah. So. And so, yeah, to answer your first question, it was a couple months into the COVID years, it was a really, really shitty feeling to realize that, whenever the world, we didn't know when the world would get back to normal. I'm not sure if it still has, but, whenever it did, I'd basically be starting over again. Yeah. Because you do lose momentum that quickly in this world, which kind of sucks. Not entirely, of course, there's people that have stuck around, but
so I want to tie this question in. So what is your goal with your music? And it's a silly question, but when I think about it, it's like your music's going to last. there might be music that comes out and gets 1 million streams, but nobody's going to listen to it in 20 years because it's not like good music. But you can throw your music out there, and there's going to be a kid in 70 years that might find it, and it's gold, to them.
Yeah, I hope so. That's cool to think about. And that is the goal, I hope that's true. 70 years is a long time, but one of the goals always has been to, not make anything of the times, just do, just make good art, regardless of what's cool or popular, just make something that's authentic, and authenticity is longer lasting than something that's just a flash in the pan of popularity, and then it's gone. Yeah. There's stuff that I intentionally don't listen to that was popular for a time because it just reminds me of how bad that like time period was. So that is a goal of mine for sure, to have music that is long lasting, and to be a little optimistic about the future and like the whole COVID era, whatever. That was something cool that I saw, the handful of people that did stick around that like didn't like unfollow me because they're like, oh, this guy's no more, or whatever. He hasn't posted anything and put out music in a couple of years or whatever. The people that did stick around, it was really cool to see, like, basically, that EP I had put out in 2019 had just been like stewing inside of them for all these years. And then, they're messaging me a couple of years into it, like, your music has had such a profound impact on me. When are you putting out new music? When are you touring? When are you coming back to Philly? Or when are you, talking to Aiden about, the impact it's had on him was really cool, because it's just, and that's the stuff that keeps, a musician like myself going.
Yeah. And then again, that's like what you're doing. Like that's what's come across to me, is that's the goal, is to make people feel and think. And it's also
that is the real goal. And so at the end of the day, if I'm not successful in the way that, it like in the way that I would hope to be, which is just like a more, I'm not obviously not looking for fame or anything, but just like just it'd be nice to have more money.
Yeah. And just to be able to do it and to make your own decisions.
But if I don't get there, then I know at the very least that like I've done for somebody else what, so much of my favorite music had done for me over the years.
Yeah.
It's really crazy looking at some of these artists that were big in, the 2000s or whatever, that I like when I was in high school, that had a profound impact on me, looking at their Spotify pages now and seeing how small they really are.
Yeah.
Some of them have less, streams than I do. And it's just like, wow, this had such a profound impact on me at the time, but they're nobodies. They don't do music anymore, but I always have this special gift that they gave me. And it's cool to know that like there's a handful of people out there that I've already done that for, and that just like makes it all worth it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't go away.
And honestly, that's why I'm sitting here still doing anything at all, because if that didn't exist, I'd give up.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's you're staying true to your, again, like you said, your talents, what you were born with, what you were given, the gift that you were given. You're staying true to it. And I just like to bet on people that do that. There's a source, and another, topic I want to get into is the creative process and how you do this, because it feels like you channel something that's out there. And that's how it comes across to me. And we were talking about a little bit about like, is it an internal thing? Is it an external thing? But it feels like a lot of this music is something that you're being given. And I don't know, that's my outside perspective. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on if that's how it feels. Like when you sit down and again, probably to start out at the ground floor where this idea starts. So, you're sleeping in the middle of the night, you wake up with do you wake up with a lyric? Do you wake up with a beat? Like what's the first crack at any song?
I mean, it's different every time. There is like, the majority of the time, the way that it works, is that I just, have this, like a melody in my head, or just like these chords that I've been playing. Anytime, I pick up the guitar all the time for various reasons. You sometimes just, have 5 minutes and just you pick it up and you're just strumming, and like you kind of always just like you just find yourself just gravitating toward a series of chords, right? And you're just like, okay, and then you pick up the guitar the next day and you play that same thing again, and then you pick it up the next day and you're like, okay, maybe I should turn this into something, right? And so you have like this collection of chords or melody that's kind of been floating around in your consciousness for a little bit, and it becomes pretty apparent, like, I should try to make this a song, because like I haven't, I didn't record this, I haven't written it down anywhere, but it's like keeps coming back to me. Yeah. And sometimes I have a lot of voice recordings in my phone of stuff that I don't want to forget. And you mentioned like waking up in the middle of the night. Like I do try to, if I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, hum it into my phone or whatever. But it's kind of tough now because I'm married and I have a wife sleeping next to me, and I don't want to, we get up early. We get up at like 6 every day and start our days and go to work and whatever. But, so I don't want to disrupt anyone's sleep, but
it just hits you. It's just random. It feels like
it's random. I mean, but that is the most common way it happens. Is again, it's just like a melody or series of chords that are just floating around in your consciousness that you just have to get out. So then you do, and that's always a pretty clear sign that it's going to be a good song. Like, so for anybody who knows my music, that song "Take It Back," that's one of my more popular ones. That's how it happened. It was just these chords that are like, fuck yeah. That's cool. And so I knew that was a pretty clear indicator that it should be turned into a song. But sometimes it starts differently. Like sometimes I have a very clear idea of what I want to write lyrically. For example, like, before I was married and in a happy relationship, I'd gone through a breakup that sucked pretty bad. And I remember, like, specifically one of my, there's a song I have called "The Hardest Part" that is just like a letter to that person, basically. Just like, this is what I want to say to you. You pretty clear, pointed idea. Or sometimes it's just a theme that's floating in your head that you need to get out. It just changes all the time. But for the most part, it is like music that comes first. And songwriting is so cool in the way that it's just like a game of discovery. So I'm discovering it oftentimes as I go. So, the chords kind of evoke a mood or theme inside of you lyrically. And then it becomes pretty clear what the song needs to be about. And then you start to write down some words or some melody, and then it becomes even clearer. You're like, what? Sometimes you don't even know what you're saying at first. And then once you get a couple words out on the paper, then it becomes pretty clear what the song's about. And then it becomes easier to keep going. It's like a step-by-step process. That's pretty common.
That was surprising to me when you said that the music came first, because I think about it and I'm like, okay, in my head, you have to start with the lyrics because it's a story, it's a song, and that's the way that I assumed that it was done. So like the fact that the music comes and then the lyrics come to you. Like, do you sit down and cut out time to like songwriting time? Because then if you're doing that,
I have to now that I'm older and have more things going on in my life outside of music. Yeah, you have to have that discipline to sit down and do that, which is really hard to do.
So then you have songs. I'm just trying to figure this out in my head. So you have songs that are written, but they don't have music to them. And then you kind of...
normally the opposite. They don't have words. Yeah, I have a lot of instrumentals that need words.
So when you're writing a song, are you trying to write it for a certain instrumental, or is it like the lyrics are coming to you naturally the way that the music does?
Oftentimes the music evokes like a mood or emotion, and so then the lyrics follow. But again, that's not how it happens every time. But it is a pretty big misconception that artists are basically poets who put their poems to music.
Yeah. So is that the opposite? That's most people start with music?
I'd say a lot of people I know definitely do. Yeah. there are people that basically write poetry and then find a way to put it to music, and I have done that, but no, more often than not, I think that's pretty uncommon. There might be like some prolific writers, like maybe I feel like that's like how Bob Dylan did a lot of the early stuff. He just wrote down this.
Yeah.
Just I'm sure he had a different process though as well.
As an aside, like what other misconceptions are there about the music industry or being a recording artist like you are?
There are so many, but the ones that come to mind is that touring is fun. Touring is awesome. But I can see, I never got burned out on it, but I can see how people could get burned out on it because it really takes its toll after a while. But, you get to go to all these cool places and not see those places. It's really, you spend all day driving. So, we're in Philly right now. So if I stayed if we played in, I'm trying to remember any time I've played Philly. I think the night before we probably played like DC last night.
Yeah.
So you wake up in Washington, DC, you get some breakfast, get in the van, drive to the venue. You normally need to be at the venue by 2 or 3 p.m., load in for sound check, whatever, do your thing. And once you get all the work out of the way, okay, let's go find some food. Then you need to be back at the venue to play your set, and then it's dark out, and you don't really get to explore where you're going. And then you play the show, you load up all your gear, you go to the hotel, you sleep, you wake up, and do it all over.
Yeah.
And like you're in it. I've mentioned to you since I've been here, how many times I've been to Philly and not like really truly explored. I try my best, more than most people. I try my best to get out and walk around, at least the neighborhood that I'm in, and like explore the best I can. But it's just hard. So like, I feel like I've been to Philly so many times and like not really like done the things you're supposed to do in Philadelphia and so many other cities throughout the country and the world. Like when it gets really weird is when you're in a foreign country and you're in like this beautiful place you've always wanted to go to, and you have no time to do anything. You're just seeing, like, I remember the first time I saw the Eiffel Tower was through the window of a van, and it was like, wait, it's tiny over there. And I was like, oh, it's the Eiffel Tower. And then I never saw it again until I came back a couple of years ago, or a couple of years later. And so it's just like, touring is a really weird foreign thing to the human psyche. It's like waking up in a new place every day and just like constantly being on the move. And like the best part about touring, and the thing that makes it worth it for so many people, is the hour or so that you're on stage. Like that's the payoff at the end of every day. But most of the day is all driving, and maybe didn't get good sleep, or maybe you're crammed in a van or with like a bunch of smelly musicians or whatever, and like maybe you haven't been eating super healthy, or you kind of drank a little too much the night before or whatever. And you just kind of gotta get to the new place, do your job, grab all your heavy gear, load it into the venue, do all the sound checking. Before the doors open, there's hours of stuff that's all going on behind the scenes in the way of sound checking and whatever, and setting up your merch and all that. Before you get to the real payoff, which is like the hour where you get to play music for people.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, I think in any journey where you're going for it, like there's an unhealthy part.
Sure,
and it has to be like. I always just laugh about this. Like, anybody who's the biggest businesses in the world, the biggest rock stars in the world, the biggest comedians in the world, like they went through a period of time where they were unhealthy.
Yeah.
And to get there, they had to do that.
Yeah. It's, I use the analogy often of like, it's like swimming. It's like standing on the shore on the side of a lake, and like you can see the other side. And you have to get there, but you just have to swim through all this other bullshit to get there. And it's like, so to have you really have to want it, because like you see it and you can get there, but it's a little too far. And you're like, man, I don't think I've ever swam that far. And you have to just like commit to it. Be like, all right, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump in this water, going to swim through all this other BS that I don't want to have anything to do with, but the payoff is over there on the other side, and I see it. Yeah. And that's like, I mean, that's definitely true in music, but I'm sure in other professions as well. It's just,
it's funny. I've I'm early on in my journey doing what we're doing, but like, I feel like lately I've had a very, very good month of my relationship with what I'm doing. Like I know it's going to be muddy, and I'm starting to enjoy that part. I'm starting to, like you said about like, you don't know the good times until, you know, they're over.
Sure.
I'm trying to think about that. Like this is essentially me playing in high school right now.
Yeah.
To you. Like I'm in my earliest stages, and it's all over the place. We don't like, you know, we're doing the best that we can, and we're trying, and we're, you know, a little disorganized sometimes, but this is the best. You know, this is
it's cool. Yeah. You'll look back on these times and be like, man, that was so fun.
Yeah.
I had this apartment that's just, you know, we just went for it.
Yeah.
You know,
me, Max, a couple pieces of equipment, and that's it. And that's like the fun, that's the mud that I'm starting to, again, just trying to be like, when I think about these things, I think about, if I want to enjoy the other side, if I want to enjoy that side, then I have to enjoy that middle part. Like you said, you know, swim
if you can find a way to enjoy it, then yes.
Yeah. But it's hard. And I'm only saying that because for the 3 months before that, I felt like I was doing terribly, you know, with that, my relationship with what I was doing. It was stressful. I was thinking too much about it. And once I, like you said, like kind of like about that letting go.
Yeah.
Can be helpful.
Totally. Yeah. You know, being an adult in general takes a lot of discipline. You know, it's like, that's the theme in my life right now, is just discipline, just having the discipline to like wake up early, to like try and get a workout in, to like not go on my phone right away, to like, to just like fraction out my day. So I'm the most productive and it, you know, and then, you know, in relation to my career, it's just, it takes a lot of discipline to work through all the other bullshit, you know, knowing that there's a payoff on the other side. But, you know, every single day you wake up, you got to get all this other crap out of the way before you can do the thing that you love to do. And if you can't do that, then sorry.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like how it goes.
I loved last night you said, talking about kids and their levels of creativity, because they don't have all these other things taking up brain space. Yeah. And I'd never thought about it that way, because the way that I think about the brain is that as a child, it's more malleable and you're able to pick things up, you know, more easily, whether that be language, piano, different things like that, sports. Yeah. I played lacrosse growing up. And one of the things with lacrosse is the way that your body and your arms move is a very, you can, if you start past like 13 or 14 or 15, like you kind of start and you're very mechanical because you're holding the stick, like your arms are getting straight out. Like I played since I was like 5 years old. So like you're like, my arms are moving like this, but if you look, like if you're just picking it up and learning how to cradle, and some guys are such good athletes that they're able to overcome that. And then, you know, as time goes on, get better with that. But being a kid and being able to pick things up quicker is, it's funny, I just haven't thought about it. Like, you're thinking about paying your rent. You're thinking about a relationship. You're thinking about a job. You're thinking about the future, the past. And it's like, kids just don't think about that.
No, being a kid is such a gift. And like, you know, it's, I'm about to become a parent. I have my first kid coming in the spring. And so, which is really exciting. Yeah. But what I'm thinking about is, there's always the argument of nature versus nurture, and, you know, what things are learned and what things are just kind of inherent in us. And I'm of the school of thought that, you know, of course we have, you know, genetic predispositions, but for the most part, so much of someone's personality is nurtured. So it's things that were instilled in them very, very, very young, that maybe they're infants or young children or whatever. And like, maybe their parents, you know, had no idea that they were having a great effect, but they really were. And in my life, the way that that's played out is just like how young I was introduced to like really great music and whatever. But, yeah, man, our brains are so malleable. And it's really exciting, but also kind of scary, you know, having a kid coming into the world, because I have to think about all those things now. Like every word that comes out of my mouth, every action that I do, how I carry myself, how I treat my wife, like that's, I'm setting an example, whether I know it or not, for somebody's watching, and that's how.
What song is that? I've been watching you. Who's that? Is that Rodney Atkins?
I'm not sure.
But it's essentially telling the story of like, the kid says a curse word because,
which I think is funny.
And
I'm totally going to cuss in front of my kids. I think that's hilarious.
But the dad just has that moment of realization. Oh wait, he's been watching me. And then, just talking about how he wants to drive a truck like dad does. Like, oh wow, wait, this is like happening. Like what? And I'm trying to think of anybody.
I mean, I'm still malleable at this age.
Yeah.
A lot less so. But
I think, just to butt in, I think that probably being an artist helps with that because you're constantly feeding your brain new things. And that's what makes your brain malleable, is doing different things, traveling to different places, having different experiences, meeting different people. And that's what, for me, getting to meet somebody is I'm accessing all of the stories and all of the experience that you've had in your life that you're sharing with me. And every time I talk to somebody, it's a whole different, new kind of thing. But I assume that through music, when you're playing, like if you sit down and you're playing with somebody that you've never played with before, you're probably like picking up these little things that they're doing, I would assume. And then again, you can take a little tiny part of that. And if that affects your music 0.2%, it still has an effect.
Yeah, and it does affect your music I mean, every time you hear a song, whether you know it or not, you're subconsciously storing that in the back of your brain, and you never know when it might come out, in your songwriting or elsewhere. But
and sorry, I didn't want to get away from the point of like what was that moment like, just finding out that, like, I'm so excited to become a father whenever that is. And I think about it a lot. And I didn't send you like the pre-email that I usually send to guests, but I write it and I say, I want this to be capturing your personal history. And I want in 20 years for your kid, when they turn 18, to be able to go back and watch and listen to where you were at in your journey right now.
That's cool.
And that's the way that I try to present this to people, because again, I want it almost like a yearbook, kind of capturing who they are in this moment. Because I always think about it like to learn about my dad in his 20s. Yeah. I mentioned he was a small business owner. Like, what was that journey like? Like, what was going through his head? What were the stresses, the highs, the lows? Like, what was that moment like, finding out that you were going to be a father, and like just kind of walking through the emotions and the thoughts too?
It was crazy because we were trying, you make the decision to like try, but you don't know how long it's going to take. Some people, unfortunately, can take a couple of years before they get pregnant. And some people seem to be the most fertile people on the planet. And I have a friend who like has 4 kids. I have 2 friends who have 4 kids that just like, all of them were accidents. So we were trying and didn't, you don't know if it's going to happen or not. And at first try, baby, pat myself on the back. But, so honestly, my first thought was just like, whoa, really? Like that, cause you just kind of prepare for like, maybe in a few months, we'll get a surprise. But, no, I mean, it was instant. So then, you're like, oh shit. Okay. We skipped the whole trying phase, didn't we? And so, but no, it's so, a little bit of just like confusion at first, like is this real? And then the excitement follows pretty quickly after that, when you start to think about the life you've always wanted and to be a father to someone is like the greatest blessing on the planet. So just nothing but excitement, really. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be challenging. There's, like I said, the whole malleable thing is something just that's at the top of my mind, because I don't want to fuck up, but that's the other cool thing about being a parent, is that you have a chance to right the wrongs that maybe your parents did to you, but by no fault of their own. Everyone's trying their best, but there's things that like I learned my parents did that maybe I wouldn't want to do with my kids, and hopefully my kids learn from me, and so that's really exciting to get that opportunity to do that. And man, I just see it as a huge blessing. It's so cool, and I'm so excited, and even though it's going to make things more complicated, I'm, just that I'm good at dealing with. I was always the guy who studied for the test the night before.
Yeah,
so I'll figure it out. And I did fine. I'm here. I got through that. So it's
just a way. It's just a way of working, and it's funny because you're going to be in a critical period. Your brain will be more malleable during this time because everything is going to be new and everything's going to be different. And what I'm really interested, and I can't wait to see, whether it be in a couple of years or again, you have some of those 2-week type song releases, like moments, like how this is going to affect your art and how the inspiration that comes through, because you're never, like we were talking about having, you play with somebody, it's a 0.2% change on your art. This has got to be like a 30% change. You're an entirely, you're still Scott Ruth, but you're more than Scott Ruth then. You're an extension.
You're right. Something I do want to be conscious of is still keeping that young spark that people can tend to lose in their art, as they age and maybe become dads. And I don't want to start making nursery rhymes or anything, but outside of that, it's really exciting because there are times when you just feel creatively dry. You just, feel like you're out of things to write about. And sometimes that can last months until, maybe you feel like you have that spark again. And so you are as an artist and as a writer, always kind of looking for something to keep you going, to channel, so that is really exciting to have this whole new world opened up to me. I can still write about all the old things, but I have this whole new world as well, which is just, I'm so excited to dive into.
An entirely different purpose. It's funny, they, in the world of sales, they call it almost like I forget if it's like a dad year or dad quarter, whatever it is. But like, again, when you realize that you're bringing another life, it brings your entire, it's like, oh shit, I gotta.
Oh, you like sell more?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like insane. I think it's just
oh, well, I'm excited for that too. If that's true in music, and all of a sudden, my kid is the catalyst that makes me blow up overnight. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
But probably a good time to transition, going from, again, being a father to this song that you just put out. And again, I just think it's the coolest thing what you're doing, being able to talk about every single song, because as a listener, being able to hear the backstory of one of your favorite artists and what all of those ingredients were that went into that mix. I know you mentioned that Man on a Mission was a long-term work in progress.
Yeah.
What was the story with Afterlife as far as, start to finish? How long was that process?
Afterlife was a lot less of a work in progress. And in fact, came together a lot more quickly, which is always nice when that happens. The process was, so I'm trying to think, man. It came together pretty easy, which is really nice when that happens. You never, it doesn't always, more frequently than not, does not happen that way. But, this is kind of one of the ones that just fell out, which if you've heard any songwriter talk about, their process is every now and then something just like falls out. Yeah. It's like a chicken hatching an egg or something, and that's kind of how this worked. I sat down and wrote it in one sitting, I think, just, a handful of hours. And, man, it's something I hadn't done before. It's kind of, it's even hard for me to explain what the song is about to some extent, but it's just like, it was really exciting to like touch on a new theme that I hadn't done before, and take on a new persona or mood that I hadn't previously done. I love exploring all these, all the avenues you can go down in songwriting. And, my first record very much was like, in a lot of ways, like a sad breakup, introspective record or whatever. And that's a cool thing to play for a second. And then, sometimes you get sick of that and want to like dive into something else. And you can always come back to that other thing or whatever. But so yeah, again, Afterlife was just me trying something new, and that was a big theme with a lot of these new songs, just trying something new. And I know that's not like what, you know, somebody who's a fan of mine might not love to hear that, because you become a fan of somebody for a thing that they do that you really love, and then when you hear an artist that you admire talking about how they now want to just like flip that on its head and try something.
And for those who aren't familiar with your music, how would you explain that? That change in tone, because this to me, again, I just don't, can't speak at a high level about this, but like it seems a little bit more rockish, a little bit more energetic. Yeah. While there's still sad lyrics in the song.
I mean, so the sad, I talked about this in the last podcast, but sad is always going to be a theme in my music, just because I find the emotion of sadness to be way more interesting and complex than the emotion of happiness or joy or whatever, which, so that will like always continue to show up. But you're right, it is more energetic, and my favorite thing to do is play loud rock music with my friends. And so I started to realize that I don't have any, I do have some songs that go into that territory, but then a lot that are softer. And so, a little bit of a conscious decision to just like do this, this thing that we do on stage, like anybody who's seen me with a band, which, I don't always tour with a band, but when I do, like it's a very a totally different thing. Like a song that you might love of mine, that's like a sad introspective song, maybe just kind of singer-songwriter, no drums or whatever, now all of a sudden is like a more built out rock thing. And so I started to realize that one, I love that so much, but two, so many people didn't even know really the side of me was like coexisting. So I figured I better get it out on record a little bit. And so that Man on a Mission was following that mission, and Afterlife was as well. And then some of these new songs aren't rock songs, they're more down tempo, but at least these first two are definitely more more rock or more energetic or something. But it's always just about growing, and it feels like a natural progression to me. But some people might see it as I started to kind of become a little bit known for making two things, like kind of like like sad introspective stuff, or like Tom Petty inspired sad introspective stuff, but like just kind of a little sad boy, and with some like and I'm a massive fan of Tom Petty, so that's not like a slight at all, but and especially his like stuff in the 80s when he was like just kind of gone through a lot of shit, and he's like dealing with divorce and like record label stuff, and just like the weight of life, and started to write sadder stuff. Like I love all that era of Tom Petty. So naturally that shows up in my music. But I kind of like started. It's funny, like as an artist, as soon as you start to get a comparison to like your influences, you want to like
run away.
Oftentimes, like just make a left turn. And I actually don't think I got too far. I mean, there's still that stuff's gonna follow me forever because it's so deep in what I do. But you just try your best to like, all right, well, let's explore. Over here, what's this sound like if I add a little more of this, or we're a little more energetic, or just kind of like some kind of fuzzy guitar solos, or solo is a strong word. I'm not that good at guitar, but just kind of just try something new, and that's what keeps it artistically interesting is that growth. And it's funny because from the perspective of a fan, again, I'm not even like really talking about my career here, because I see my growth as pretty slow and constant. It's pretty easy to follow what I'm doing, but like a lot of fans kind of get upset when a favorite artist of theirs like comes out with something a little different, new or left turn or different or whatever.
We talked a little bit about Noah Gundersen last night, and that is kind of how I not upset, but it was just like when he there was certain.
He definitely put out a record that was a pretty big left turn. A few years ago, which I love that record. But yeah.
But it almost, as a fan, it almost comes as a shock.
Yeah, it comes as a shock. But you have to. What I'm saying is that you have to realize that basically artists get to a point where they're just like, I'm either going to stop making music, or I'm going to try something new, because I can't keep doing the same thing over and over. Not only like, do I feel like that well's run dry, but it's just like it's just interesting to me right now. So if I'm going to be making art at all, it's going to be me trying something new. So like, and I as a fan have, been disappointed by records by people before they're like, kind of take a left turn. But, it's, you kind of have to look at it like, okay, they made this thing, this exists, that'll always be there.
Yeah.
And whatever they're doing now shouldn't necessarily take away from that legacy.
And it might, the way that I think about it, it also might have an effect on that future. Because again, every song that you've ever put out stays with you, and then maybe it didn't work this way, but maybe there's parts of that you took and put over here. And the example that's coming to mind for me is like I loved Kid Cudi growing up, and he put out an album that was just like completely not even a left turn. Like he's on the other side of the universe with, I forget what album it was, but that he did that for one album, and then later he kind of got back to his his bread and butter, but it still had influences from that album that was a left turn. And that I feel like that kind of probably happens,
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of art, you have to be a fan of growth and change, because otherwise that person's going to stop making art. And again, I'm not even talking about my own career, because my growth has been really slow. But like thinking into the future, I probably will try even more, like more new stuff, because otherwise I'm just not going to want to keep making art. I've already done this thing. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. So what is especially Afterlife done for you in that sense? Because again, it is different, and it is, while still staying true to you as an artist and as a person, it still feels very on brand, but it feels like it feels like a natural progression to change.
Yeah. Well, the most exciting thing about Afterlife to me when I was writing it was just the lyrical change. Again, it's just like touching on a topic that I hadn't really touched on before, and that always feels cool to like open. We talked about like opening, having a kid and opening up a new door for you creatively, and like that's always really exciting when that happens. When I've been happily married for a while, and whatever. And I'm not, I have depression and all that, but I wouldn't necessarily always want to be writing about it. And so sometimes it's just to put on a new hat and write about something other than like the traditional sad. Like Afterlife does have sad lyrics, but it's not like breakup sad. It's more like I'm curious how actually you would define it, but more like an existential sad, or I like to call it like it's more like a social commentary. Or something, but I'm curious. Everybody's going to interpret it different, which is cool. Yeah. But how did you?
And that's what I again, like two people can look at a song and just feel differently.
Yeah, and that's
about
so
it.
Cool.
And I only have my lens to be able to look through it. And I, for those who don't know, I've mentioned this on my podcast before, but I've lived with complex post-traumatic stress disorder from childhood trauma.
Yeah,
and this song, it feels like it's telling a story of childhood trauma.
Yeah,
to me, and like that's the way that I can't look at it through a different lens, maybe a lighter lens, but this to me is so personal. Like this, just to read some lyrics. Started out as a young boy with the world at his fingertips. Something happened down the line. Thought you were still one of the kids. Now yesterday is gone. Look around. You don't see any friends. You steal your daddy's shotgun. Pull the trigger. See what happens next. And like reading that, like I don't know. It's again.
It's pretty dark, huh?
Yeah, but there's something for me personally, because I've dealt with those dark demons in life and the ups and downs, and there's something that makes me feel seen in these lyrics. There's something that makes me feel acknowledged in these lyrics.
I think the thing in that verse specifically a lot of people can relate to is the all of it, but like starting out as a young boy and then having such a positive outlook on the future, and then waking up one day and things just look different than you thought. And, you know, maybe you have less friends. That's a pretty common occurrence in adulthood, is your friends get whittled down to just like a few close people, and which is fine, but also a bummer, you know, especially, I grew up as a fairly social person, you know, got along with everybody. I had, you know, I had a bunch of different friends. I was friends with the jocks. I was friends with like the punk kids. I was friends with like the drug addicts. I was friends with like everyone.
Yeah.
A bunch of, you know, large group of friends. And it's a really crazy occurrence to wake up one day and just realize that that's been whittled down to just a small crew of people. And maybe even, you know, for some people, unfortunately, almost feel like there's almost no one.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, that is very relatable.
And that's another thing. Like that's the way that I related to it. But even thinking about the way, like, anybody can relate to this, because there is, I think, in everybody's life that one point, that one turning point where, again, it's like a waking up to reality of life. Like whether that's, you know, a kid got bullied, somebody, you know, I've had people in here who've lost parents at a young age, and you just, again, you know, now yesterday is gone. That out of the entire song, that's the lyric that is like burned into my brain, because that is something that I think about life a lot, and I overthink. I definitely overthink, and that's, again, kind of like
time moves quickly, and that's a universal feeling as well. So a really cool thing about song, you know, or a really good song should capture a universal feeling, you know, in that way, and when you do, you know, there's so many people that can tap into that and interpret it however they want. But that's a really cool thing about songwriting and about art and about metaphor, where you keep it kind of vague and less on the nose, and people can apply it to their own lives, and it takes on its own meaning within that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's and I, again, for those who are, you know, fans of yours who are tuning in that aren't familiar with anything that I've done, is, you know, I built this men's mental health podcast, and that's the theme that I focus on. And that my whole intention has been getting guys to open up about things that, you know, again, they usually don't open up about, especially publicly, to make it, you know, my whole goal has always been like, you know, if there's one kid on the bus that's listening to this, that's struggling and is feeling these things right now, hopefully you can look and say, Scott Ruth just said he has depression and has dealt with these things. Oh, okay, maybe I'm not so crazy for, you know, feeling the way that I feel. And just kind of expanding a little bit more on the way that you put your emotion, and I don't even want to say mental health, because it's like, what is mental health, but also emotional health into your music. Like, is this dealing with something that you're actively dealing with? Is this something that you've dealt with in the past? Like how is that?
I think subconsciously, yes. Like whatever you're dealing with, whether intentional or not, it shows up in your music. Oftentimes it's not intentional, but whatever you're dealing with is going to reveal itself to you in your music, which is really cool, because it's just living inside of you. So it has to come out. But yeah, I mean, that's when you're writing a song, oftentimes you get halfway through before you even really realize what it's about, and how it is like basically a mirror staring back at you. You're like, oh fuck, you know. But yeah, that's kind of how it happens. I rarely these days sit down with a mission. I try to just like more so play the role of just somebody channeling, you know, whatever it is that's floating in my subconscious or just out in the, you know, spiritual realm or whatever. But and again, that just like comes out. Your subconscious is always gonna make its way into the lyrics. But
it's fun. It's funny. Sorry just to jump in, but it's funny that you say that about not having a mission, where you just put out a song, man on a mission,
baby.
So like something's coming out, you know, you're secretly on a, maybe you're secretly on a mission.
It really is. Songwriting really is. You've heard this from songwriters before, I'm sure, but a form of therapy, you know, because it's the best part of going to therapy, which I don't actually right now, but I have spent some time in therapy, and like they, you know, a good therapist, I think in most cases just kind of like holds up a mirror to you're just talking and revealing things to yourself, and they're just there to like kind of assist, you know? And songwriting works the same way. You know, you are getting this thing out on paper that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense until it's complete. And then it's just kind of, and then you're like, you feel good. You're like, wow, I got that out, and now it exists, and it's really powerful. And so, that's, you know, songwriting's, I love it so much, but for, you know, that being one of the big reasons, because it's just therapeutic in that sense.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say, has it helped you process things? Has it helped you just deal with them? Like just literally just dealing with life? Like
yeah, I think so. I you know, I've never really stopped. So I'd be curious to see what would happen if I did, you know, if I did stop writing songs, the effect that would have. But I've been pretty consistently writing music, whether that music's ever going to come out or not, but for, you know, 15 years or more. I don't know. I lose track of time, but, so yeah, you don't even like realize it anymore, but yeah, it's just a really helpful thing for your overall, just like mental well-being. And I have a lot of thoughts on depression and mental health in general. I mean, some of them are really complicated. It's obviously a really important issue.
Yeah. I would love to hear some of your more complicated thoughts about it, because I agree. It's
like more common than ever before, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is depressed. Everyone has anxiety. Nowadays, it's rare to find someone who's just kind of like cruising through life, happy-go-lucky, because just the way that our world is now, it's just like so much has been like skewed and is just foreign to us evolutionarily. I'll touch on that again in a sec, but like and then, you know, especially like our cell phones and stuff, like, you know, everybody knows, everyone's seen that. What's that documentary? Social Dilemma? I think.
Yeah.
And there's a couple others that just, you know, talk about what our phones are doing to us and what social media is doing to us and what all this culture is doing to us. But, you know, it's complicated because it's real and it's worse now more than ever. So we should really be working to find a solution. And there are people out there that are really doing a good job. But on the other hand, I want to be careful to not create a culture that's like that's too, I don't know what the word would be, but like it's really easy to become a little too self-involved, or even like carry some narcissistic traits when talking about your own mental health, because everybody wants to feel important and everybody wants to feel unique and feel special and wanted and cared for and all that. So sometimes, you know, someone opening up about and being candid on, you know, maybe on the internet about their mental health ends up just becoming some like really unhealthy identity.
Yeah. And I can speak to this because it's one thing, and I think that you're probably dancing around the word, but like it's a victim mindset. It can seep into you. And that's happened.
You do have to be careful of that.
That's absolutely happened to me in the past, and it's easy to fall into. And again, I think that everybody is looking for something to identify with. Uh-huh. And if you have nothing to identify with, and there's been points in my life when I haven't had something to identify with, I've absolutely identified with my pain and my struggle and sharing it. And
it becomes your identity.
Exactly. Yeah. And part of, as I was sharing earlier about my last month here, transitioning in my head, transitioning to, I can just be Christopher. Mm-hmm. I don't have to explain. And sometimes I still like naturally feel like I do to provide context in situations like this. But like, you know, I almost felt like at a point I was like waving a flag. Hey, and what this podcast has done for me is every conversation, realizing that we're all going through it, whether, you know, no matter where it comes from or what it is, everybody, like you're saying, like literally now it's everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it.
Yeah. And it's bizarre. I really do believe it's going to swing back. I think that this is it's going to get to a breaking point. Just a personal opinion, because it's good to raise awareness. And obviously that's like what I want to do here. But at the same time, what I try to do personally and through this is like learning from it. And the moving on part is what like we all need to do. And I think at some point it's going to get to a point where it's so prevalent that everyone's just like, all right, wait a second.
Well, I always have to remind myself, you know, are you depressed when you're camping with your close friends or family and your phone and you don't have cell service? Are you depressed then?
Exactly. Yeah.
Generally, no. So that means it's just a result of all these external things that we're allowing into our lives. And I want to be really careful. I don't want to discount anybody who struggles with real depression, because there are some people where it's just a dark cloud that follows them everywhere they go. And sometimes I feel like that too, you know, feeling isolated in a crowd of people. But, you know, in a lot of cases, speaking of my own experience, once you get back to, you know, closer to a more kind of, I don't know, primal way of living, which is just like getting rid of technology, taking, you know, sabbaticals, getting out in nature, getting sunlight, eating healthy, real foods, not a bunch of processed junk, you know, just like real natural organic foods, and spending time with friends and family, you know, you're happy all of a sudden, because that's how we're meant to exist. We evolved in living in nature, waking up and going to sleep with the cycles of the sun, being surrounded by friends and family because we had to be, because if you were out, you know, in the forest amongst a grizzly bear completely alone, you didn't stand a chance. You had to be with a group. So like we are meant to be out in nature. We're meant to wake up and go to sleep with the sun. We're meant to be eating healthy, natural foods. We're meant to be exercising. And we're meant to be surrounded by a small community.
Yeah. And essentially it's the exact opposite of everything that our society now is.
Exactly.
Is you're surrounded by thousands of people on the internet, like being on Twitter. I find myself, and I love X, but like I love that platform. I love reading. I love hearing people's perspectives. But when I do it, especially in the morning, this thought always hits me. I don't know any of these people. I don't know. And like, yes, do I pick up certain things? It's nice to learn, but like, I'm not supposed to naturally be exposed to 100 people's thoughts before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
It's not like it's that.
And you know what? Also, you're not supposed to be exposed to world issues. You're not supposed to know what's going on in America and know what's going on in Israel and what's going on in China or, you know, the Middle East or Malaysia or Australia, or like have all of the world's issues existing in your mind all at once. Like it's too much to process, you know, your immediate issues.
Yeah.
And so now everything that we're doing today is completely foreign to how we're supposed to be operating. And it really sucks because obviously, you know, I'm not going to become a caveman and like throw out all my technology and like just go live off the grid. And as nice as that sounds sometimes. So you have to find a way to exist within the current world, but it just takes a lot of discipline, which I touched on earlier. That's just been a big theme in my life recently, but it takes the discipline to know when to put it down, to like ration your phone use, and to to get exercise, whether it's just like taking a walk in nature, like having a dog has been so helpful for me because it forces me to take him for walks.
Yeah.
Just get out and take steps, like I would never just go walk around my neighborhood by myself as much as I should, like I wouldn't, but taking my dog for a walk is the best thing I can ever, every single day I look forward to it. It's just like I'll write songs while I'm walking. I'll listen to podcasts while I'm walking. I'll just like do all this stuff that's so good for my mental health while I'm out just walking my dog and being out in nature and being exposed to sunlight and like even cold exposure. Like in the winter, I like walking my dog because like that, like the cold just like wakes you up. You feel so good. And
it's so funny. Like that's the thing. It's like, you're just supposed to. And I say this all the time about living in the city. Cause I grew up in like rural Pennsylvania where there's, I always joke that there's literally like horses. I could see the horses from the backyard. Like
that's so cool.
It was so cool. And
you're a soy boy.
It's like, this isn't supposed to be like Aiden. We went up to the roof and we haven't done that yet last night before you got here. And Aiden looked out and he was just like, only humans could do this. And then he made a joke. It's like, and beavers, but not like this. But like,
and it's really fucking cool. I mean, look at we're higher than we ever should be.
Yeah.
On some man-made structure, just looking out over an amazing skyline and a river, and the city of Philadelphia, which is like one of the first. The Declaration of Independence was written down the street. It's really. Wait, is that right?
Like literally right there. Yeah. That'd be Old City. So
so it's really cool, but you just have to remember that it's completely foreign to the way that we were meant to exist, the way that our bodies over however many years have like evolved to exist.
Yeah.
Along with nature. We've built a wall between us and nature, and we have to remember to get out and just be a part of creation, which is like there's a cool connection to art and songwriting there, just to exist within creation, and then and all the inspiration and positive thinking that brings to your life as a result.
And it I wonder if it bounces back. Like I just don't think, and again, I guess this is what happens. I'm not nearly as smart as I would like to be about this, but it doesn't seem like these kinds of societies last over history.
Well, they don't.
Yeah. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, it seems like this is not how it's supposed to be. This is how it is right now.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And I try to, again, back to like kind of appreciating the mud. Like I'm trying to appreciate these things because again, I said that about being in the city, but the reason I'm staying in the city is because I have to be here for this. Mm-hmm. I have to be here for easy access to the train, to the airport, to meet people, to network. We were talking about where we were last night, like just being around these things. The homeless problem that I bring up every podcast, it seems like just seeing this it's real, and it's helped me grow. But it's funny. I want to tie this all of this back into Afterlife, because that's another way that when you asked originally like how I kind of processed this song, that's how I processed the first verse. The second verse, the transition between the first and the second, and I guess I do want to ask a little bit straight up of like, these are two different people. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first verse and second verse are talking about two different people.
Two different people, because I lost that in the way that I was processing it at first. But it made me think about, again, just like the reality that we live in, the possibility that somebody takes their own life, and then in the second verse. Just the first two lines. You waited out through the winter to see if maybe something would give. It kind of, the person in the first verse and the person in the second verse, they're taking two different options. One, I'm assuming at the end, is taking their life, and one is just being like, all right, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow, maybe it'll be better. Waiting it out. And that's such a beautiful way to say it. Waiting out through the winter. You waited out through the winter to see if maybe something would give. And that's extremely relatable for anybody who's dealt with depression, because there's times where it's like, sometimes it's
eternal winter.
It's just like, all right, like I'm just like, it feels very gray. I mean, I think that's depression, from the studying that I've done. I'm actually gonna be finishing up like a research paper on this, but like the way that I view it is it's a a numbness to the world, things lose their color, things lose their feeling, things lose their spark, the way that the world is supposed to be perceived. Like we were talking about the audio, where you were explaining when it peaks and you lose a little bit of that, the top of, when it gets to that red line, it feels like depression is you're losing more and more and more of those peaks. And it's a numbing feeling to me.
And that's actually a really cool analogy. This is a nerdy music thing, but what makes music interesting and feel good is the dynamic within a song. So like the ups and the downs, and like, a loud part doesn't feel loud if the whole song's loud.
Yeah.
You have to have the quiet part for the loud part to stand out. And if everything's just has no peaks, it's just flat, then it's gray and uninteresting.
It's a ride. It's like, I think about it as an emotional, and then also just like, just through sound. There's nothing cooler, in my opinion, about music. There's nothing cooler than the unexpected, and the same thing could be said for a movie, a twist at the end. Like when there's a twist in a song, like when a lot of times with story songs that I love, it's like, it gets to the end and then it, like the entire song, everything that you thought was going to happen shifts. And it's just like that to me. It's like, oh, they just took me for a ride, like that's because being a fan of singer-songwriters, it's kind of what happens a lot in those types of songs.
Yeah.
But as far as another question that I had directly about the chorus, from the first chorus to the second chorus, in the afterlife after the first one, or during the first one, and then the second one is it's the afterlife.
Yeah.
So was there any, like, that's the thing, is like when I'm trying to get inside your head of like, that's such a huge change lyrically that if you're listening to a song, will probably go unnoticed for the first 99 times if you're just listening to it. And like the way that I process music, I listen to it and then I will pull up the lyrics, I'll read through it, I'll like go line by line, and like that didn't hit me until the 50th time, that I...
Yeah. So what I will say, I think I touched on it earlier, but I love to keep songs open for interpretation, because everyone can attach to it and apply it to their own lives, however they see fit. So I don't necessarily want to ruin anything for anyone, but I will say that I heard somebody kind of jokingly say, do you remember how the world was supposed to end in 2012?
Yeah.
I think they even made a movie about it, didn't they?
I love that movie. Yeah.
And now we're just living in the afterlife. I think that theme is probably showed up in the song one way or another, whether consciously or subconsciously, because like that's something I think about often. I know, it's obviously a joke, but like it kind of does feel that way sometimes, where the world did end in 2012 and now we're just living in the afterlife, and it's like, how do we exist in this brand new world?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways it did, I think
it's not so crazy. It doesn't, it's
so much has changed in the past decade, and in a lot of ways, not for the better. I am optimistic that they could change, but man, that's a theme that like I thought was funny, whether I intentionally put it in the song or if it showed up in its own way. But
it's funny you say that, because I've had some pretty deep thoughts on this. That my friend Tyler, who's a guest on the third episode that we did here, we were walking around, we're doing after this is grabbing cheesesteaks, and we were just having a very deep conversation about life and like what this, like reality, what this all is. And I'm pretty obsessed with the power of the brain, and how, like I say, like when, there's people on the street screaming at the sky, they're seeing that. We're not. Mm-hmm. They're not screaming at nothing. They're screaming at something. Mm-hmm. They see that. They hear those people that are in their head. That's not real.
Yeah.
The power of your brain to be able to do something, it's scary, to be honest. It scares me. It has scared me. I'm processing it as I go, but like, it's been scary to me along my journey that I started out writing about this idea in a notebook a year ago. And now you're sitting on my couch for 13, 14 episodes in, whatever it is, and it's happening. The fact that your brain, if it fixates on something and says, I'm going to do this, you can do it a lot,
Yeah, it's like, I'm skeptical to say this, but in a weird way, schizophrenia almost proves that we have power over our brain because they created, alternate reality for themselves that they now exist in, and it's a really scary thing. But we can do the same and create a positive. It takes a lot of discipline and probably therapy and time, but we can create a better world for us to live in just by like learning how to work within our mind and the power of positivity and all that. And again, I say this as somebody with depression, somebody who's had it forever, somebody who often feels isolated in a room full of people. But I've over time gained the tools to know, at least know what's going on and hopefully be able to slowly work through it.
Yeah. It's funny that you said about the, especially the schizophrenia part, is a topic that has always scared me. But the more that I look into it, the more, and I hate to use the word.
Wait, just pause real quick. I mean, I know nothing about schizophrenia, and not saying these people can necessarily think their way out of their situation, but you get the point of what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so I've recently been studying this guy. His name's Itzhak Bentov.
Okay.
He, this is probably like 50 years ago. He's doing this work on consciousness, and his theory was that the smartest people in the world are in mental hospitals. They're accessing this reality that will be our reality in the future. They just haven't learned how to process it. And part of his, they haven't been able to live in that reality and this one. And that's eventually that we're going to be able to do that. And that's, whether that's through technology, whether that's through the mind, it is happening. And he even said, like, one of his examples was in the Bible, there was like 4 or 5 colors mentioned. We were only able to see that. The spectrum of our perception was only here back then. And now it's grown to here. And the way that technology is going, the way that life is going, it's getting here. And what I think, people with schizophrenia, they're seeing all of it all at once. And that's what's scary.
Yeah.
But we just got to, over time, from what I'm learning about it, is understanding how to access those realities at appropriate times. Because I do, back to the creation process, like I think that's what you're doing, is accessing a certain part.
Accessing my own schizophrenia. Well, so, you've probably heard this, that some of the most smart people on the planet, some of the smartest people on the planet have or fall on the spectrum, the autism spectrum. And it's our minds, we only use a fraction of our minds. And so the people that are able to open it up and see more are, sometimes can create really amazing things. But it's something you just have to be careful of. Let's use like using psychedelics or like drugs, for example. We all know people who have taken some kind of, mushroom or acid or something, or DMT, and claimed that that they're not only have they seen the other side, but they're healed, they're better, right? Yeah. And that's crazy if true. But then we all know somebody who's just permanently fried and spiraled down into this just insane, whether it's schizophrenia or whether it's something else. So it's a really dangerous thing to play around with. I would never, I don't even, what's that?
Have you, if you don't mind me asking?
I've never done any of those drugs. I had no, luckily I stopped. I used to do, when I was in high school, pain pills, or at least where I'm from, were a big thing. So we were all taking Vicodin and Norcos and stuff.
Thank God.
And I started to get a tummy ache, so I stopped.
Oh, shout out that tummy ache. That's
it sucked. But so I stopped taking. I don't even smoke weed anymore. I don't do anything. But I have friends that recreationally do stuff, whether it's, mushrooms or whatever. And yeah, it's just something, it's just like, it's kind of scary to me because, it's just dangerous.
Yeah.
I would never openly endorse it. Although, there's a lot of researchers that are saying that, it can really have a profound impact long-term on human health, which I'm still skeptical of. I mean, if there's anything I've learned recently is, you can call yourself whatever you want, but you're just to be skeptical of experts, people who claim to have the answers. And
who is it? Because that's, as you're saying that, like I fall into that first group.
Do you?
I had an LSD trip that I say saved my life. It changed my life.
Okay.
That none of this ever would have happened without it. But I've only ever done it twice. It's almost been 4 years now. I haven't wanted to do it again because you're playing with fire.
I'd say that's probably call it quits. You had you probably got what you needed out of it. You know what I mean? There's you are playing with fire for sure.
And that's the thing is there's different, again, like the background of like what that actually does for the sake of depression goes, essentially your brain has these neural pathways that you're flying down at every time. That's why an alcoholic, if they've been drinking for 20 years and at 9 a.m. every single morning when they wake up, they have to grab a drink, they're not making that decision constantly. Their neural pathways have done that 10,000 times in a row. So they don't, it's automatic. It's just like when you're working out or you're a runner, that kind of stuff is automatic. You don't have to think about it. Psychedelics just puts you in that malleable, and it's called like a critical period in the months after. It could be weeks for mushrooms, a little bit more than a month for LSD. And I'm not sure about the other ones, but depression is your neural pathways being stuck in the same way as an alcoholic, just being stuck in this darkness. And what it did for me personally, and what it does for many people who heal, especially with trauma, it allows you to like open up that other side of things. It back to the music example, it lets you, oh wait, now I can see where the red bar is. But some people get stuck in the red bar. Yeah. And that's what a lot of these things, especially with schizophrenia, that's what happens. And that's something I'm not willing to risk right now. Maybe
totally,
further down the line, but like it's again, and I also want to say, like, I feel for people because everybody's just trying to get through life no matter what it is. Everybody just and again, part of my thoughts on the mental health epidemic is really what it can be called now.
Sure.
Is that as life gets better, again, like if everything in life is balanced, as things are getting better, things are also getting worse at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Huh?
And because we have access to all of these things that are really cool and could be defined as better, we're going to feel those pits more. And just like you said in music, part of the ride of music is being able to feel up, down, up, down, up, down. And that's just, in my mind, expanding more and more and more. And it's just understanding how to deal with the lows is what I think we're all trying to figure out right now.
Totally, yeah. And to relate that to music, it's, in our current landscape, it's in a way better than it's ever been, and in a way much worse because, in the past there was gatekeepers in music and you basically had to make it past the gate to ever have any chance of success. And now anybody with a phone can bypass all of that. So the upside is obviously the kind of like, what would you call it? Just like the backdoor approach or whatever. But the downside is that now the competition is worse than it's ever been, and you can't just be a musician and expect to have any success in music. You have to like take on all these other roles. So it's like, now somebody is forced to kind of like just learn how to navigate those waters. So like for everything, I thinking about the current state of music, I feel both optimistic and pessimistic at the same time. It's really hard to explain, but it's like, in a way, it's really cool that I can open up my phone and in a lot of ways just like access my fans immediately, which isn't necessarily true because Instagram throttles me and only shows my content to like 10% or less of my followers, but that's maybe a separate issue. But in a way that's really cool, but it's hard to think like, maybe in an alternate universe where there still were gatekeepers, they would have let me through years ago because, the talent is there, not to kind of puff up my ego, but I like my music.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, the world, the better that it gets, the more complicated it gets. And we just have to be conscious of that because although things are getting easier and more comfortable and, we basically have everything we need. We have air conditioning. We have this phone will tell me give me almost any answer to any question. Tell me how to get where I'm going. Tell me if the mole on my chest is cancerous or not. And we just have to be conscious of the dark side as well, which again takes great discipline. So it's definitely really important to talk about this stuff, and I have no problem doing it. But if I seem hesitant at all, it's just because it's a really sensitive issue, and there's always two sides to the coin. As important as it is, it's also pretty darn easy to like just like unplug and disconnect from the matrix, as they say, like just get out, turn off your phone for a day.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And then just see how much happier you are.
Yeah.
Just like unplug just in these little moments and recharge. And it can have such a great effect. Like that should be the first, if anyone is out there struggling with all this stuff, the first thing you should try, the first handful of things you should try is one, limiting your time on your phone. Like if it means getting a flip phone that doesn't have all these apps, then do it. Or if it means just, unfortunately, again, I'm going to become a dad, so I can't like not have my phone on me. I need to like, be accessible.
Yeah.
But, rationing your time on this little black mirror is the first thing. Eating healthy, exercising, whatever that looks for you. I'm not some perfect example of health, but I do a lot of walking. I go to the gym as often as possible, and then the third thing is eat natural, healthy foods that your body is meant to consume. That's not processed crap. Like I've heard that to like when you go grocery shopping, just walk around the outer edge of the grocery store. Don't go into the aisles because that's where all the crap is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All the meat and vegetables and everything you need is like all on the outer,
Man, I love those middle aisles though.
Oh yeah, everyone for sure, bro. I mean, yeah.
And that's the hard part. It's like, it's what's good for you.
Discipline. You have to have the discipline to not like, for example, eating healthy starts in the grocery store. If you bring home a pack of Oreos, you're going to eat those Oreos. My wife and I get into this all the time because she'll go, she shops at Trader Joe's and they always have some new thing, seasonal thing or something that just looks absolutely delicious. And so she'll bring home a tub of ice cream or cookies or some sweet. And I'm just like, that's where you just fucked up. Like you brought it home. Now I'm going to eat it all.
Yeah.
I don't have the self-control to not eat it when it's sitting on the counter, but I do have the self-control to not bring this junk into my life, like not bring it home from the grocery store. And it's like, just knowing these little tiny disciplines all throughout your day that like somehow add up to a greater quality of life. And I promise you, they will add up to a greater quality of life. And if you try all of these things and still have struggles, and odds are you will, I still do, then there's other things you could try. But if you don't have the foundation covered and you just jump straight to, some of the more, how would you put it? Just the, more Western ways of dealing with our mental health, then you're just it's been proven that these things like alone, a diet, health, exercise, whatever, like can have such a profound effect.
Yeah.
So like if you're bypassing all that and jumping to other solutions, then your chances of success, I'm sure, are lessened because it's just, you need to have the bases covered before you try to alter the chemistry in your body and do all these other things that we try to solve these issues. But and another thing for me, you know, a lot of my depression stems from lack of feeling accomplished. So, you know, but there's the kind of pretty stupid theory of, you know, making your bed in the morning, which I don't do. But, you know, the theory behind it is all these tiny accomplishments throughout the day add up to a greater accomplishment. And so I try to do that where, you know, the worst days I have are the days where I feel like I got nothing done. Mm-hmm. I did nothing good for myself, nothing good for nobody else. I just kind of was like a slug on the couch or whatever, just kind of like whatever, on my phone too much. So there are days where I don't necessarily accomplish anything really that great or interesting, but I woke up, I cleaned the kitchen, I took my dog for a walk, I made it to the gym, I wrote a verse of a song. Maybe it sucked, but I wrote something.
Yeah.
I responded to that email I needed, whatever it is, like these tiny little things. Now all of a sudden at the day, you didn't do anything crazy, but somehow you feel better. And it's because you like these tiny little accomplishments one by one slowly add up to adding to your self-worth. You know, you feel, when you feel unaccomplished, what you're really feeling is lack of worth. You feel like, why am I even here? I literally added zero value to this planet today, to anybody, to myself, to anyone around me. And when you just make these tiny changes, it can really have a profound effect. So that's my basis for solving all this stuff. Like I'm not claiming to be an expert. I do have interest in the stuff. I did mention I took a semester of prereqs for psychology and read a lot of like the books that you're supposed to like, you know, at the beginning and whatever. But I
mean, your lyrics are an extension of that psychology, your interest in that. And that,
sure, yeah.
That, and it's funny because there's, again, focusing on the men's mental health part of it, there's a difference between men and women. That's where we get our worth, is doing things, producing things. Women naturally have the option to produce children with whoever they want. We have to compete for that. So we have to produce to be able to earn that right. And that is just such as I'm studying all these books behind you, like it's just the most natural difference. And that's where a lot of that comes from for men as society's changing. I think that men are losing their spot. And it feels very intentional. It feels very, I don't want to get conspiratorial.
Yeah, well, sometimes, but you know, women, I'm sure women do have a need to feel accomplished and worthy in their own way. I don't know how that plays out. If I had my wife next to me, she could maybe touch on that a bit. But speaking from my perspective, it is absolutely true. And I do believe that there is like an inherent, like call it like an evolutionary thing inside of us that is just like for generations, we've had to like go and find food and hunt and whatever. And like, man, I mean, that's gotta be a great feeling of accomplishment to kill, you know, something and bring it home, and now you can feed your tiny village for a couple of days, and like to have that, and then that keeps you wanting more, and that keeps you doing it again the next time that, like, you know, you need to put food on the table. And like that's the way that we have evolved and grown to function. And that is, if anything's in our DNA, that definitely is, you know, that just that need to like to accomplish and like I don't know how else would you put it, just kind of like earn your keep and or something. But
one of the things that a book I recently read is called The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. And essentially his argument is that men, or just, it could be anybody too, but like we fear as humans, we want to live forever. Mm-hmm. Is what we have this natural inclination to want to do. And how do we do that? We create things that can live on past our physical bodies. Mm-hmm. We create things as in art, music, movies, anything like that, structures other humans. We create other humans to pass on our genetics to keep it going. And that fear drives us. So it feels like a natural thing with a lot of these things. I try to embrace that and understand. And that's why I've been thinking about death just a lot lately. And I've become like, my relationship with it has become much better. Like, I don't fear it anymore. Like, if anything, I look forward to, like, I think it's, and I don't want to scare anybody saying that, but like, it's
the sweet release of death.
Yeah. Like, it's so, I mean, but like, again, like if that were to happen before I was able to have children, that would be the worst thing ever. But like,
sure.
We want to keep creating, and this, as you said, back to creation. It's what we do. And I'm sorry that I laughed when you said that at first about, not feeling accomplished, just because that was a natural reaction for me, because I'm jamming your music. Mm-hmm. You, in my eyes, you are accomplished. You've already won. Like, the games are like, but that's the thing, is like, it's never enough I think what is the beautiful part about artists as well.
Yeah. I mean, it brings up an interesting point. Like, will I ever feel that way? I don't know. Does Chris Martin of Coldplay wake up feeling accomplished? He should. He definitely should. But, maybe not. Maybe he neglected his kids and his family and didn't feel for last week or whatever. He was just too caught up in his work and didn't really do his job as a father, and now is feeling the weight of that. And like, you never know what anyone's dealing with, but yeah, I know. I didn't take any offense when you laughed. I totally get what you're saying, and something I have to remind myself of constantly is that I've done the coolest shit. It's my life up until this point has been the best. I've done so much that I've wanted to do, and it never looks exactly how you want it to. So of course there's that where, I thought when I got into music 10 years ago that we were in a different world. So I thought it was going to look like music then. Yeah. But now the industry's changed so much that I'm existing as thing. And of course it's not going to look how my success isn't going to look how it looked. We thought it would look 10 years ago. But like, at the end of the day, I have to remind myself that I have had the best, coolest experiences. I want more. I want to keep doing it as much as possible. But, I could put a nail in this thing and hang it up right now and have zero regret, because just like getting to meet or play with some of my favorite artists of all time, or touring in some of the most beautiful places, going to these cities that I'd otherwise never get to ever go to, and all over Europe or anywhere. That's like I mentioned earlier about touring and how hard it is, and seeing the world through like a bus window or whatever, which is weird. But on the other hand, I have had some really great experiences, been in one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to, like Switzerland, that area of staring at the Swiss Alps, and it's just like picturesque. You're just like, wow, I'm here. I'm getting paid to be here. And I'm playing music at the base of that mountain tonight, and it's just insane. It's something that I have to remind myself of all the time, that hardly anybody on this planet will ever get to experience that, and they'll experience their own victories in their own ways, but mine have already come to fruition. And the only parts that have not are, the big existential adult things that are just like, how am I going to get to do this for my whole life? Like, how can I stay at this pace for the rest of my life? I can't, how am I going to grow? All those questions.
Again, you're trying to survive.
Are natural. All the survival stuff.
But you're trying to make your art survive. And it's funny when you said that, like the two things that, on your worst days, on those days when you're on the couch, not productive, and you feel terrible about yourself, it's so hard to remember those highs. Like, it's so hard to remember those, like what you just said. That's beautiful, the way that you just put that, about all of your life experiences, all those things. Like, it's so hard to remember that. And I imagine it's also hard to remember that as you're doing that, there's somebody who's dancing around their kitchen with your music on the speaker, and it's making their day. Yeah, exactly. And you don't get to see that or feel that, but like how cool and like that. But that's things like that's really hard to remember on those days, and it's not.
Yeah. So post yourself doing it, send it to me because it really goes a long way.
Yeah.
You know, it helps. It really does. You know, we have to be reminded of these things. Unfortunately, I don't know why the human mind, you know, works this way, but it's just. Life is transient, meaning it just like goes up and it goes down, and you just have to like follow it through the peaks and the valleys. But you know, I try to be really thankful to the people who do say really nice things and send me, you know, just show any interest in what I do, because it means more than they know. Because there are every artist. Especially ones on my level, which are just struggling to like keep doing it, you know. They have to be reminded of the good that they've done. Cause, man, it just all those good things just seem to somehow get lost and taken over by, you know, just negative thoughts on a consistent basis, which sucks, but you know, I'm getting better at it. So I can only hope that I just keep, you know, wish to be even more thankful and more just to live in my life's blessings, because there are so many of them.
Yeah,
you know?
And a big one coming. So
heck yeah,
I can't wait. I would love to have you back in maybe like a year and check in and and do this again, because I like to think that I have a weird radar sometimes, and it feels like there's some, not only, you know, in your personal life, but there's some good things coming your way, because you're doing the things the right way. You care about what you do, and it makes an impact on me that it's ineffable. I can't even put it into words. The way that you've again helped me, helped Aiden, helped others that you will never even get to see. And that is something that is never going to go away with your music if you don't make another song again. So I will challenge people to, with Afterlife especially, I will challenge people to afterwards grab headphones, the best quality headphones that you have, if you have them. Either blindfold yourself or close your eyes and play this song. And we'll either, you know, put it in here at the end or link it.
Yeah.
But to feel everything that you've put into this song, it's special. And then to have you did the live version as well, which is up on YouTube, and that's
thank you, man.
That's epic as well.
Those live versions are a lot of fun. Yeah, that is the best way to listen to music, on a good pair of headphones or maybe earbuds too. But
feel it. So where can everybody find you as far as?
Man, I'm everywhere, or I try to be. But scottruth.com. On Instagram, I'm Scott Brian Ruth, my full name. Scott Ruth. Yeah, look me up. Scott Ruth Music.
Spotify.
I exist. You'll find me. Yeah, Spotify. That's probably the best place to go if you're trying to find my music, and not just some, you know, stupid Instagram reel or whatever. But Spotify, Scott Ruth. Everything I've put out is up on Spotify, I think, for the most part. And I just appreciate anyone listening, and I hope if anybody who is a fan of your show and doesn't know who I am listens to this, if they take away, one of the things they take away is just that, like, to support artists that they love, because they need it now more than ever. But you know, it's really just a tough world. I mean, you know, so your chances of success are slim. We know that, and if you are succeeding, you're in a lot of cases just scraping by. So, like, you know, if your favorite artist comes through your town and they're playing locally, like, go see them, because you don't know when or if they'll be back. Honestly, just it's really tough, and we're all trying our best, trying to stay afloat and do your best to support artists. I know everybody's struggling. I know, if you know, in the year 2023, you know, times are tough for a lot of people. So, you know, I get not necessarily being able to go to every show that comes through and all that, you know, realistic stuff. But man, it really does make a huge difference and mean a whole lot to your favorite artist. And if you want them to keep producing and making stuff, then then support them the best way you can. Obviously that the streaming their music on Spotify is a big one, but if you can buy physical copies, if they have physical copies available, or t-shirts and merch and
I'll even
ticket sales,
the easiest and the free one is sharing, commenting, anything. Now, as we talked about, earlier,
share
the algorithm type stuff. It's like that if somebody shares your music, essentially they're passing it on to 2 other people at least, whether that's either somebody who finds your music, becomes a fan, or it's just the algorithm then suggests it to more people. And that's hey, it's what I'm trying to accept is the world that we live in. And I don't like that that's the way that it is, but that's the way that it is. And that's the game we got to play.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me. This is really cool. This is a killer couch with a killer view. So I think probably half of this video, I'm just sitting staring out the window because it's just such a killer view. But man, I appreciate you having me. This is really cool,
dude. Well, thank you. We'll have you back, and we'll try to link that music video because that thing's fresh.
Sweet.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Thanks,
Scott.
dude.
Thank you.